The cries for help came from this light rail station in Inglewood in 2022. Police responded. A man ran from the scene.
This is a picture of Meg, senior high school picture.
Jenny only wants us to use her first name, mostly because of what happened to a woman named Meg.
There was no doubt in my mind she had been brutally, physically attacked.
Jenny saw Meg, her estranged daughter, for the first time in years in a hospital with no more than a machine keeping her alive.
It was probably the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And to see her in the condition she was in still breaks my heart.
Meg died not much later. Inglewood police targeted a parolee for the apparent crime, Ricky Lee Roybal Smith, even went as far as to tell his parole officer, "I will absolutely let you know when I file the case on Ricky."
So they're treating it like a homicide.
They're treating it like a murder, yeah.
But the case stalled. An inconclusive autopsy didn't help. Roybal Smith went back to prison on an unrelated case. The Inglewood case, Meg's death, remained open, active even today, we're told. But somehow, it never came up.
And I'm speaking with Ricky Roybal Smith.
Never came up when Roybal Smith came up for parole for the 5th time in 15 years.
Because like I said, I'm done. This is different. It's definitely different this time.
In 2025, the parole board released him again, thanks in no small part to this assessment that found him moderate risk to reoffend, a conclusion that strayed significantly from the assessments done in 2017, 18, 19, and 21. 5 months into this latest stint on parole, investigators in Aurora and Denver say Roybal Smith attacked and killed 3 over the course of 26 hours.
He was so sweet. He was so sweet.
One of the 3 was Michelle Schaefer's son, Jesse.
He had the most beautiful blue eyes. Like his papa, and his daddy died when he was 12.
9 News Investigates found the 2024 assessment used by the state before it let Roybal Smith out was littered with errors. We found his score was too low by at least 7 points. He should have been high risk, not moderate.
It needs to be fixed. There's too many families like mine that this is happening to.
Records reviewed by 9 News Investigates show Roybal Smith faced no drug screens, no face-to-face meetings with his parole officer for at least 2 months before the trio of homicides.
Why? Why? Can we ask why? Can we start to investigate? Can we fix this system?
A good question. At the beginning of this investigation in early 2025, DOC assured us it had quality assurance practices to ensure assessments are completed correctly. Basically, trust us, we're doing it right. Our investigation went on to find the opposite. In late 2025, DOC finally did its own internal review. 45 parolee assessments studied. The review, done as a response to our reporting, found errors on all but one, a 98% failure rate. We are re-engineering the entire assessment process, DOC told us. Your investigation identified a critical issue. Critical issue indeed. There are 8,000 people on parole in Colorado right now. It is safe to say as of today, the State Department of Corrections has no idea how many of the risk scores are off on those 8,000. The commitment to training will be helpful, but that's not going to address the existing problem. The state is largely flying blind here, and that is a big problem.
I have so many questions about this, as I'm sure our viewers do. Just with this one story alone, and you've been bringing us these stories all week, that percentage is outrageous that you discovered, but also in this specific case, did I hear that correctly, that he was involved in that case, this Ricky Roybal, and then because they didn't close that case, he went on to commit 3 more murders?
It's interesting. He's on parole at the time in 2022. There's a woman by the name of Meg Eberhardt. She's the one that dies at the Inglewood light rail station. And there's this mystery as to who happened. Now, Ricky Roybal, according to Inglewood police, ran from the scene. He was the one and only suspect, still largely remains the one and only suspect in that death of Meg Eberhardt. But the problem is that the autopsy was largely inconclusive, so charges were never brought. I think what's crazy to me is that they have a parole hearing for him a couple years later where they let him out on parole, and no one looks through the notes and says, hey, you still remain the one suspect in a homicide case. You want to address that? That never came up.
It's unbelievable. It just seems like no one's on top of this. What have they told you, the state, that they are going to do differently?
Training, that's one thing. The state is committing itself to training and taking a look at the assessments of all of the, it's how their parole officers score these assessments. But as we talked about at the beginning, there's 8,000 people on parole in the state of Colorado right now. The state does not have a really good idea if they've scored any of them accurately. And when they did a small sample test to see how many they're scoring accurately, they found they had a success rate of 2%.
Yeah.
2%. If you spread that across the board, we're talking about thousands of cases that potentially are misscored. Doesn't mean that they're going to commit new crimes, but it does mean they're not being supervised appropriately enough.
Yeah. Training sounds good. Start with the level of accountability, but if you don't act on that, accountability means nothing.
Absolutely.
All right, we know you'll stay on top of it.
We will.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.